So can we skip Turner? Is that fine?
No, we're not.
You want to hit him quick? All right, let's hit Turner quick. We'll circle back to this because Ainge talked yesterday, but if you want to hit on Turner, we'll do that for a few minutes here. So Myles Turner, great game tonight. Hits his threes, blocks his shots, defensive player of the year, caliber player, all those things. This situation's hard to read because I've heard every story under the sun about this situation. Washburn had all those reports over the offseason that they wanted this guy from them. The negotiations were such that he was able to identify players that were on the table. Myles Turner and Doug McDermott was the package he threw out there. Zach Lowe, who's one of the most connected reporters out there, says every single podcast he's on that the Celtics, if they wanted Myles Turner, all they had to say was yes, and he's coming. But then since Gordon Hayward went to the Hornets, and every interview he's been in since, he says, oh, I wasn't even thinking about the Pacers. I'm a Hornet for life. Like, I never was even considering that. I think a lot of people have assumed that the reason the Celtics didn't do that trade is because Hayward wasn't going to Indiana, which if that was the case, obviously they couldn't do a deal. Like, Hayward had to approve that. I think the truth's somewhere in the middle. I do think the Pacers were probably offering a little less than the Hornets. It sounds like $100 million compared to $120 million. But it does sound like there were heavy negotiations, and Hayward was playing ball enough to make both teams think that they could get a deal done there. So did Ainge balk at McDermott and Turner and want more, and that caused Hayward to walk away and take a different offer? Or was that Hornets offer always going to overrule everything? It's tough to say. But let's say that Turner was a possibility for the Celtics. There would have been no TP. There wouldn't have been flexibility, but maybe you could flip Turner in the future for a different piece and have him and McDermott be part of this team now. Are you looking back on that now, Joe Sway, and saying...
You better go to Joe Sway.
Yes or no?
Yes. I'm saying yes, Bobby. And the reason why I say that is because the way that whole thing was drawn out. Remember, like it was like 3-4 days, and all of a sudden in comes Charlotte with this offer.
Again, how much did we talk about that? Does that sound like something that was just made up out of thin air? That was happening.
I think it was happening. I think there's a lot of truth to it because I think the ball was essentially in Gordon's court. Yeah. I think you want to go to Indiana. This is how we're going to facilitate this trade. What are you going to do? You want to stay in Boston? You want to go to Indiana? Or here comes Charlotte? And Gordon's been the one that's sort of gone back and forth in these interviews too. Like the latest interview, he says that he makes it sound like it was a coin flip between Indy. Boston.
I don't buy Hayward. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, like he can't call it. Every time he goes back to it, every time he thinks back to that time, he tells a different story. So I honestly think there's a lot of truth to it because I think obviously there's the hometown connection, and obviously there's the fact that the Pacers are a pretty damn good team. Let's face it. Between the two,
they would look really good with Hayward right now.
Exactly. It put Hayward in a situation where he's what he wanted to be. One, a featured player, right? Two, competing on a team that has a chance to go deep into the playoffs. And three, you're back home. You're back playing in front of your family. And I think all that is very significant to Gordon Hayward. But then again, here comes Jordan. Jordan comes along offering him essentially the same deal he just signed in Boston 4 years ago. I mean, who would turn that down, especially when it's coming from the same guy who not only painted this picture for you 4 years ago, but he pretty much told you you're making a mistake going to Boston, or that you were making a mistake, whether it was staying in Utah and not going to Charlotte. And here he is again 4 years later telling you, I told you so. So, again, I think I think there's a good chance the deal was on the table, whether it was Myles and McDermott or whether it was Myles and player X. I just think Myles Turner has so much to do with this because the Celtics were looking at the Bam Adebayo in the Miami Heat series and thinking, how are we going to measure up against Bam? We need an answer for Bam. I think that was definitely one of the top things on their list heading into the offseason. And I think ultimately they settled for Tristan Thompson. They took the championship pedigree. They took the tenacity of a player who hasn't been in the spotlight for the last couple of years, and they thought that could push them and take them a long way this year.
And again, Jimmy, I'll let you go in a second, but they interviewed Turner on media day in Indiana, and they're like, did you think you were going to get traded? And he was pretty much like, yeah. So like this was there. Yeah.
He talked about how strong
again. His agent was in his ear saying, "You're probably going to go to Boston."
Sorry, go ahead. No, well, I'll just say real quick, he never shut it down, whereas Victor Oladipo, you remember like a week or two after the initial reports, he's just like, I don't know who's saying these things, but I haven't heard anything about me getting traded. Myles Turner never did that. He never shut them down.
Okay, so I don't know what, like, you guys, I don't know what's true and what isn't. I don't know if Danny Ainge had the deal on the table.
Yeah, let's just pretend it was, because it probably
able
was.
to make it. Right. Let's, for the sake of argument, say that it was. They could have gotten Myles Turner and Doug McDermott back, and Gordon Hayward goes to Indy, which I'm stunned he didn't go to Indy because I just assumed Robin was calling all the shots, and if she was like, "Yo, we're going to Indy," he's going to Indy. So maybe that extra money was the determining factor. I'm sure it probably was. But if the question is, did Danny Ainge make a mistake if that was an offer? I think the answer is very obvious. Yes. You're basically talking about you could have Myles Turner and Doug McDermott or Tristan Thompson and a TPE that you may or may not use, right? So for all the fans and for all the Celtics reporters who were saying, Myles Turner's not even any good, he stinks. Like, here, Tristan Thompson and the TPE is way better than Myles Turner. I just hope that you guys take a freaking lap because you're wrong. You're wrong, and you're so quick to defend Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens and Celtics this, Celtics that, and you want to poo-poo the fans who see a good player in Myles Turner, see what he's capable of being a stretch big who's young and on a pretty good contract, of which I heard many times was untradeable. You're going to sit there and tell me right now, Bobby, that Myles Turner's contract is untradeable? I don't think so. So it's very funny how quickly the narrative can change on a guy like Myles Turner, who would most assuredly be starting for you and playing a hell of a lot better than Tristan Thompson would. So for everybody who wants to go back into the archives, pull up your tweets and your snarky comments on Myles Turner and Tristan Thompson and Danny Ainge and people who, think that Myles Turner's a good player, I hope you do. And I hope you do a few push-ups tonight. I want 17. I want 27. I want 30. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. That's 30 push-ups for every single one of you people who are poo-pooing the idea of getting Myles Turner. And Doug McDermott, who, by the way, last I checked, you need a backup wing too, right? So does he not fill that role? Yeah, I think he does. So let's just not even ask the question anymore of whether or not this was a mistake, if it was an option, because 110% it was a mistake.
All right. You make a good case, Jimmy.
Mic drop.
I think it's time.
Ether. Peanut.
Oh,
here we go.
Hey.
Yeah.
For all the people that wait an hour 15, you get what you deserve here. There's no way I can hold out on anymore. And there's a couple points. There's a couple points I'll make ahead of it, but you're right, Jimmy. Having Myles Turner and Doug McDermott is better than having a $28 million nothing that needs to be packaged with other things. And let's just face it, the Celtics haven't defended the paint at all this year. Turner's as good as it gets at that. He might win Defensive Player of the Year, which is a status award. So a guy like Turner winning that is no joke. So his production's been through the roof. He irks me with certain things he does, but there are other plays where he's at the top of the offense and can dribble downhill, get to the rim, and lead possessions in a way that would get the ball popping a little bit with this team. I don't like his three-point shot. It's only 32%, but it's better than nothing. Would he be blocking Rob a little bit? Maybe, but Brad sorted that out with Thompson. And let's face it, I've liked Thompson, but he's been miles and miles better than Thompson has. And on a night like this, rebounding's his weakness, but he had a strong rebounding night here. So would he have been the perfect big? Would he have solved Bam? Would he have solved Embiid? All those different things? Who knows? But he's playing fantastic this year. He looks like he does things that the Celtics need. And on top of it all, you could flip him later. He's more tradable than it seemed at the time, which is an argument I made then. Even at $18 million, you would rather have Myles Turner and Doug McDermott, who wouldn't be a forward-facing trade option, but would be helping this team right now as a wing. There you have it, Jimmy. They should have done the deal. And when Danny Ainge says there were things we could have done, I think this is what he's talking about. So there you have it.
John missed a good
I love
one.
it. That was a good apology. John's going to be upset that he missed it, but I'm sure he's going to be watching it back.
Again, I expected a lot more from Thompson. Thompson's defense has disappointed me to a point where you have a bad defender at center right now versus the defensive player of the year at center. I mean, that's just undeniable. You would pay $9 million more for the defensive player of the year.
John's definitely going to point out that you mentioned how you don't like how he shoots threes, though.
I don't. I mean, come on. You saw it again tonight. He hit them early, missed them late, missed the free throws in the crunch time. I have my gripes about him, but he's young. He's not 28 million. 18's pretty high, but it's fine. Like, he's worth it. And
it's nothing in today's
he's got upside. Yeah, and we talked about like the possibility of him improving here in this system, which was certainly a possibility. And now it's gone. You know, he's improved so much this year that the Pacers probably are just going to keep him.
Right, and the other thing that I forgot to mention is, like, one of the reasons, didn't the Celtics bring in Brad Stevens so that he could fix a player or help improve a player just like this? I mean, if you don't have faith that a young player like Myles Turner, if you had issues with him at age 24 or 25, however old he is, I don't know exactly. I know he's young. Let's put it that way. I mean, he's got plenty of time to evolve as a player and as a person, and sometimes just a change of scenery can do wonders for a person. So for everybody that was just completely writing off this guy because of how he played last season or the season prior in Indy, that's just crazy to me. I mean, you got to give him another chance with another coach and another system and other players around him, and then make your judgment. So I just thought at the time of that all happening, it's like, why are we so quick to say that, the Celtics made the right move. They did the right thing. Trust me, Tristan Thompson and TPE is worth more than Myles Turner would have been. It's like, hold up. No, actually, you're very wrong. And it's okay. Like, it's okay to admit when the Celtics may have screwed up. You don't have to. I'm not talking about you, Bobby. I'm just in general. People are so quick to defend the team or the organization or whatever. It's like, it's okay to criticize or to question something because it doesn't always. They don't always do the right thing. Your favorite team does not always do the right thing.
Yeah, it was a mistake. And I listen now, and we have a debate.
If it was. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't. It was on the table, and he said no, but theoretically, hypothetically, it would have been a mistake.
You would rather, as I listen to you say, just wait on a deal, and I listen to Danny and Wick echo that, I would much rather have Turner and McDermott as pieces producing right now that you could use as flexibility later. And the Celtics would undoubtedly be in a much better place right now with Turner as their starting center and McDermott available on the wing. Like, there's no doubt about it. We wouldn't even have to be throwing around all these trade ideas right now. So all in all, it's just a much better thing. Even if those guys didn't become amazing players here, they'd be filling gaps that they desperately need. And this would overall just be a much better team. Turner, there you go. Defensive player of the year.
Good
apology. Apology cam is done.
So
and
we got a couple
no more
apologies.
Pacers Celtics games this year.